Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We're going to wait just 1 moment longer as everyone from the lobby is entering the meeting space. Excellent. It's 11:06. And so I think what I'll do is I'll get an audio check from my team members. Stephanie, are you hearing me clearly? And do you see my screen okay?
Yes, I hear you and your screen looks great.
Perfect, thank you. And so it's 11:07. People are still trickling in. Let's see, we have 163 people participating currently. And so there'll be people added to the queue as we move forward. But we have a lot of information to cover. And so I just want to get started. And first of all, I want to welcome everyone to the Eviction Prevention Rental Assistance Landlord Program webinar/meeting. Today, July 7th. I'm Audrey Triandafilides, the lead of the Landlord Program, and I want to take a moment to thank every one of you for joining us today, for both your partnership and the continued program engagement you've displayed. We officially launched the Landlord Program this week, and many of you will begin receiving post-registration communications, and that's what we want to talk about today. However, we will dive into more instructions around those details in just a moment. First, a little bit of housekeeping. We want to ask that you please keep yourself muted. Upon entry into the meeting, everyone was muted, and we want to sustain that so not to interrupt our presenters today. We aim for really clear, crystal clear audio during our short time together. And we're trying something new. This meeting a platform is a little bit different from a webinar, but I wanted to have more of an interactive sort of meeting space here today so that I can see you guys. And just to be forewarned, however, that my team has been instructed to mute and remove participants as needed to keep the meeting atmosphere conducive so that we can deliver the important updates today. So sorry and thank you in advance. Next, we are recording this session. And if you oppose, now would be a good time to sign off and wait for the meeting follow-up to be released regarding all the content that we cover today. And lastly, please note that we will stop at 2 distinct points along the agenda to engage in Q&A. And then everyone, please utilize the chat box feature to pose any questions. And we will work through the queue answering those questions. Then, if time allows, we will open the floor when more DCHS staff join for the open Q&A session at the very end. Okay, sound good? Let's get down to business. So the Landlord Program is launching this week, and I have an agenda here for us today. There's some important topics. We're going to cover programmatic updates led by myself, and we're going to we'll cover, we'll basically level set the expectations and map out some of our next steps. And I've created a few slides today to help review some of the most common inquiries that are coming in through our support requests and email box. We're going to look at a data snapshot. This is no new information. This was highlighted in the last couple of weeks by our director. And then we're going to introduce, which I'm mostly excited to present to you about, is the prioritization tiers. This is linked to one of the most asked questions that are coming in. When will my property be served? And so we've got an outline to introduce you today. The main feature for today actually is this live technical assistance with Grant Care. They are the contractors that helped build this database for our registration process. And Shane Lucas will join us momentarily to walk us through a review of the post-registration navigation of the portal. We've learned some best practices from last time, and we feel like this will be a good way to introduce to the landlords to re-enter the portal to begin this post-registration phase. And then again, as mentioned, there's a Q&A session at the very end. The first thing that I want to kind of mention is sort of like how it all works, the landlord program model, right? The landlord program, and this is a very familiar sort of screen that you may have already encountered when navigating the website, but the landlord program supports high volumes of tenants to be served effectively and efficiently through coordinated bulk payment agreements. And then what I want to highlight in addition to that is that EPRAP 2.0 has 4 different programs underway with a core team of about 14 of us, with many additional support staff that have been added recently to help with the demands. But our program has been intensely working behind the scenes to build this system that will essentially deploy the emergency rental assistance dollars into our community while adhering to the federal requirements. But the point I want to make on this slide is that we've been training the community-based organizations that are ready to serve as our frontline experts in this partnership with King County, the local landlords, and the community. So we have 30+ organizations that required intensive training and guidance around the program criteria and guidelines. And I'm only mentioning that to help set the stage, emphasizing how the CBOs, or the community-based organizations, have been my primary focus up until now. And now is when my team will start to shift its attention back to the landlords as we start to process the registered properties in our program. So the landlord program, the tenant program, and the hub and spoke, by the way, we all serve tenants with the rental assistance application process, and then outreach and assistance is on standby to support the other 3 teams, bringing equity-based strategies to help deploy critical resources to the community in the way of language support services and technical assistance. So they are literally knocking on doors to help provide support services to households identified with higher risk of housing instability. Okay. The next slide here is, I'm just gonna sort of pause. These are the landlord program phases. And essentially we opened the landlord registration back in April 28th for approximately 3 weeks through May 16th. We had a lot of activity and interest. We are now today on July 7th on phase 3, which is 1 phase away from the final payment release. So we're getting closer. Phase 1 and 2, which I term as pre-registration and registration, you might not really sort of see the differences in them, but it's when you entered the database to begin your application process or your registration process. During pre-registration, you essentially verified 3 things: that you had 5 or more tenants that were behind on rent, and that the properties that you were going to register with the program were located in King County. And you also agreed to credit the tenant's account within 5 business days, right? Once payment was released. At that time, we also captured the prioritization data that we're using to help map out the buildings with the highest delinquency rates to be served first. And that information is coming into play now with the post-registration phase. And we'll kind of touch on that in a second. During registration, it was only 2 or 3 clicks in with the database that you engaged in, but you, at that time, the activities was that you designated a point of contact To lead the program functions, you registered properties with the program and you submitted your required documents, which was the W-9 and the right to represent. Additionally, you agreed to the program terms, which fall under the two main documents. That would be the landlord terms and agreement and the landlord bulk payment agreement. So now we have entered the post-registration phase. And I've been telling everyone for the last couple of weeks, please stand by, please stand by. And so now we're here. And the activities that we can expect would be, we're going to reach out to the landlords to begin submitting your tenant rosters with units in arrears, your leases and rent ledgers for the tenants, right, that you identify on the roster. And we begin tenant applications. The tenant pool is backwards, they're reverse. So the other programs that we mentioned earlier, they're actually starting with vetting the tenant applications, and then the landlords will be invited in later. For this program, the landlords came in first. We're gathering all this information, and then the tenants will come into the portal now. And this is the post phase. In addition, this phase, this is more applicable to the housing authorities. There will be additional documents, perhaps, that you will upload during this time, and that's the tenant income verification. And for many of the property managers, I'm going through all the file reviews now for the landlords to help verify and them for program participation, but many of the property managers did not submit the right to represent document. And so that's something that you will do when you get invited back into the program, and then clear instructions will come. The next phase, and this is a tiered process, will be payment release. That's when you start to see the last agreement from this program, and it's called the final payment agreement. And King County, by the way, because there's so much money to get out into the community, we were trying to emphasize the direct deposit, you know, by selecting the that all payments be administered through the automated clearinghouse. In rare cases, we are releasing checks via the US Postal Service, but these are the phases of the landlord program. And when the Q&A sessions opens at the end, we can bounce back and sort of clarify some of this information. But I wanted to give you a very specific visual that we are in phase 3, and we're almost to the payment release stage. So this is the landlord program data, okay? None of this information is new. This was already highlighted by our director in a correspondence that was released maybe 2 weeks ago. And they will be providing you with higher level data for the program as we filter through sort of cleaning up some of that. But at a glimpse, at a snapshot, we have 145 million available for 2021 program. That's this EPRAP 2.0. And we expect the program to ultimately provide rental assistance for nearly 30,000 households. And that's an estimate until we get going, so that we can understand clearly, you know, what the trends are. During that time frame of April 21st through, what was it, May 16th, when the registration was open, we received 2,600 properties that were registered from landlords seeking assistance. And 1,900 of those properties are apartment buildings. And so that's just for perspective, right? Apartment buildings will have more units. And then 700 of that 2,600 were all the other property types: condos, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, mobile homes, single family, and townhomes. Okay, and what I'm doing now is working behind the scenes, verifying all of this information, and we're beginning to assign properties to community-based organizations based on many of these factors. This 9,000 households that pre-registered for assistance was dated from June 21st, and we might have other staff members later give us a more accurate count to date, but that's what I have on file. And then this is the information that I wanted to I'm just going to pause here for a second on this screen to, let me go back, to just sort of allow people to see this information. What I want to emphasize is how this program is designed as a tiered process in terms of reaching post-registration phase. So dependent on the delinquency rate of the portfolio that you registered, you know, these are the tiers for which your account will fall under, right? This is a tentative schedule to help provide context for the most asked question of 2021 from my program. It's when will my properties be served? All right. And so it was very difficult up until now to provide any context around that because we were still building out the infrastructure and the dates were kind of moving. So we're kind of at a point where we're launching. And so this is a rough estimate of what we can expect. More correspondence is coming because the next question I know you will ask is, what tier do you do? So communications are coming out, right? What we're doing now is focusing on serving or sort of launching the highest tier. What this explains is for portfolios that registered, you will rank in the highest tier of delinquency if you have 35% or higher of a delinquency rate as captured at the beginning of registration. And you may expect to hear from us between the months of July, August, and September to process your properties and begin working with your tenants to complete their application processes. That's what this means. In this highest tier, what I can announce today is that there are 150 properties that are verified for program participation and ready to be assigned. Okay, and so that's just a portion. That's a percentage of this highest tier, but this will be sort of like our first test launch. And we're going to move forward starting today through the end of Friday. And you will begin receiving correspondence if you haven't already on some of these next steps. But we have the high, medium, and low. And the low comes all the way down here in terms of 0 to 15% delinquency rate. And really what I want to emphasize at this stage is that this information will be solidified most likely after we're about approximately 4 weeks in, when we get to see the different trends and sort of clean up some of the data that might be duplicative in the system, okay? And so all these numbers and counts and totals will adjust, and then I will prepare to have maybe, what do we call it, bi-weekly webinars that touch base with everyone that's enrolled in the program every 2 weeks, okay? So this is a snapshot of what to expect. We are starting to communicate with all the landlords that are that fall under this ranking of the highest prioritization, and they will begin to receive correspondence from us. Many of the correspondence is automated, and at this point, once you receive the notification, you'll be linked with the community-based organization, and then you'll have a one-on-one interaction with somebody who can help walk you through some of the other questions that you may have as we start to see the tenant applications, the progression of the tenant application. So the CBOs, once you're connected with them, they kind of become your contact in terms of day-to-day information, but there's also a lot of self-led status updates that can be achieved through the portal. And we're going to show you some of that today. So that means you don't have to send 20 emails a day or check in with you. You can go into the portal to see some of this progression in real time, okay? Why this is important additionally is that as we start to work with the properties or the accounts that fall into this highest category, and we're moving them into post-registration, we are inviting them back into the system to complete some additional steps. And that's why we have today some technical assistance support from Grant Care. We have Shane Lucas here with Grant Care leading a visual tutorial of technical assistance, and we're going to cover a couple of things. And this evolved because of the best practices that we learned the first time when we let you into the portal, and then there were a lot of questions, whether or not it was intuitive or if there was a question. But so now we're going to provide you with some firsthand experience on how to navigate this portal to get back in to complete your next steps. And Shane's going to show you how landlords with active accounts verified for the program. So this phase that I'm talking about of going back into the system to complete your post-registration phase, it is a tiered process. So that means not everyone is going to start this process at the same time. Only those that fall under the highest tier category, and you will be notified by us. Okay, there are people in the highest tier category that still have items that need to be vetted, and we'll be reaching out to you with those loose ends as well. But we have, what was it, 150 properties that are ready to go this week, and then you'll be hearing from us. Shane will also review the tenant roster bulk upload. So we have this bulk upload feature that we are excited about, and that will allow some of the large portfolios to log their information on a spreadsheet and upload it into the system to create all these tenant records that we'll be utilizing to engage the direct service work to help tenants through their application process. And then we're also going to have Shane show us where to look for tracking program status details and the progression of your tenant applications. So let me see, has Shane joined the meeting? Let's see. Shane Lucas.
Hello.
Oh, there we go. Excellent. Hi, Shane.
Hi.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen and allow you to sort of come in. There we go. So do you want to introduce yourself, Shane?
Yes. I have to ask for permission to be unmuted.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No worries. So good to be here. Thank you all for the time and doing this really important work. And we're excited to show you the progression of the portal and some of the new features, and also explain a little bit about the back-end process. I think it brings some color to everything that Audrey just described. Although on the surface, it doesn't seem like a lot of things are happening, but they are. So her team and everybody is working feverishly around the clock to get this up and running in a very streamlined way. So today I'm going to walk you through just some of the basic portal features. Then I'm going to show you a little bit of the back end so that you get some context around what the DCHS team is actually doing, so that you can see those notifications happening. And I'm sure you guys are receiving those emails and text messages at this point. And then we'll jump into that bulk import process, which is after the agency assignments are made. You'll receive a couple of other notifications, which will trigger the need to go ahead and log into the portal and provide us with your tenant information. So looking forward to showing you guys.
Let me know if you have trouble sharing your screen, and I'll confirm when I see that up.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Looking good? Okay. All right, so everyone, I'm sure that by now you've registered, you've logged in, and so I'm going to jump in initially and just show you some basic navigation, a few tricks that you may be able to use right away. The first thing I want to point out is that when you first log in, you're going to see this homepage. And you'll notice that for landlords and authorized representatives, its registration is closed, and that again was by design. Right now we've collected everything we're going to, and we're reviewing all of the information. But I want to show you, so as you log in, you're going to see that your login information will appear here at the top. Now, this is a navigation menu that we recommend that everyone use. This provides you with a quick link to all of the core pages of the portal. You're able to view your user profile, and this is your specific information. A point to raise here is if you change your email address here, it will actually change your email address. However, if this differs from the email address that you use to create the registration, it doesn't automatically update. That email address that you use to register is essentially your username. This simply changes the email address where correspondence is being sent. I know that was, we saw a few questions come through support about that, so just wanted to clarify that. Your company profile tab, this is where you're actually able to update your company's profile information. You'll see your name, your phone number, business and mailing address information. If that information changes, you can always go into this particular field and you'll be able to get the address information populated, and then you can save. If it's the same mailing address as your business address, you can just click same as address and update. And then you'll get this message when the profile has been updated. Authorized users, we've seen this feature used. This will provide you with the ability to add new authorized users for your company, so your organization. In order to add, let me turn off these notifications. Oh, they are off. Okay. Shut this down. Okay, so to create new authorized users, you simply would click the create button and you provide us with their information. And by providing that, the person who you just authorized will receive an email from the system where they will receive an invitation code and they will be able to log in. Property owners. So as a property manager, there may be more than one owner whose account you're managing. This is where that information will appear. So to view their account information, you would simply click on the account number and you'll be able to see their mailing information, banking information, and make any updates that are necessary. Now bear in mind that this information is what will be transmitted to US Bank when we get to the point of payment. And so the name on the account number, the routing number will all be verified ahead of time, just to ensure that we're able to pay quickly as soon as these tenant eligibilities are completed. For registrations, this is where you're going to actually log back in once an agency has been assigned, and you're going to see this vendor registration page. So just depending on where you're at in the process, you'll note here that if I click on the complete button, I'll be able to see the status. And so here in this example, you'll see the status where tenant review is in progress. And what that means is any of the tenants' information that have been uploaded will be verified by the CBOs. And we're looking here at the tenant information, the documents, very similar to the process that landlords went through with DCHS. The CBOs are going to be doing the same. If you registered for more than one property owner, you will see under registrations, you will see the list of the property owners, and you would simply need to click on their particular account and their registration would come up here. In this case, I have one. Under tenants, this is where you're going to see the list of all of the tenants who have been associated with one of your properties. This is really important to understand the status of this, and we'll be working with DCHS to publish definitions around these status reasons. We try to make it as intuitive as possible. New simply means no one has reviewed it. Awaiting tenant registration means that we are literally waiting for the tenant to register their information. And then pre-registration tenant pool would mean that this particular tenant has been associated with your property, but they had previously been approved under the tenant pool. So this should be, this will be an anomaly if you ever see this. But just so you're aware, this page will show all of the tenants that are related to any of your properties. And then when we get to payments, which fittingly we don't have any here to show because we're testing that functionality this week. But the idea here is that as soon as we have payments that have been approved in the system, you will be able to see the payment ID, address, their information, the amount that's approved, payment date, and then the status of that payment, which most of those will be either payment approved, in progress, or completed. That's when you will actually see these payment records hit your profile. So that is some basic navigation around the portal. I think, Audrey, take your lead on this, but wanted to show them a little bit of the back end so they understand what DCH is doing now, and then we can show the import process. Would that work?
Excellent. So that's great. So what Shane just walked us through is sort of like that self-guided ability to check on information where you don't have to send emails to people to figure it out. That's basically in a nutshell. So the portal will help provide you real-time information, very specific to the progression of your tenant applications, right? And so just familiarize yourself with the tab that he highlighted at the top, and just kind of, you know, once you get back in there, you can navigate around. You're not going to see some of the information. For instance, if you're participating in the landlord program, you're not going to see the tenants until we do the bulk upload, which he's going to show next. So some of this stuff is like in sequence, but this is going to be your friend and a very helpful tool to get you real-time information. And so I think next what Shane will show us is how the landlords with these active accounts that are verified for program participation in that highest tier, when we invite you back into the portal to begin this post-registration process, this is what you will do. This is what you will experience, and he's going to show us that now.
Perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to switch over to a separate screen here. So again, now I'm logged in as a landlord who has been assigned to an agency. Very quickly here, so just again for some context, this is the backend database where the information is being reviewed and verified. So that you guys can kind of understand, there's a verification process whereby we're reviewing the properties that have been uploaded. We're reviewing banking information. We're ensuring that the terms and conditions were signed and received through DocuSign. And then we're actually going through this verification checklist. So as we're reviewing the documents that were supplied, we're updating the checklist to identify all of the eligibility criteria. We're making sure that the W-9 is correct. We're making sure that the terms and conditions are accurate. We're making sure that the bulk payment agreement is signed. And again, that all registered properties are within King County. Once we've done that, we're approving And so this actually triggers a series of notifications. You'll receive an email that'll have next steps. It looks like this. I'm sure you guys have been receiving them, sent thousands of them at this point. And then at this stage, there will be an assignment made. So what we would do is actually switch over to our actual agency assignment process, where we are then going to assign an agency. And again, you'll receive a series of notifications as an agency assignment approaches. I'm gonna show you kind of some of the notifications so that you're familiar with them. I'm sure as you guys start getting these text messages and emails, they are pretty self-explanatory. Like you'll see an agency has been assigned to assist you with the process. Once the agency is actually ready to work with you, the status will change pending tenant detail. And again, you'll receive an email that basically says, here you go, log in to the portal and give us your information. And that's exactly where I'm going to take you now. So I received these email notifications. You can see them all kind of popping into our test box here. They're going to look like this in this sequence. So it'll start off with your approval. You've been approved. Somebody will reach out to you within the next 72 hours. The next one that you'll get is your property is now ready for processing. And then the last one that you're going to get from this round is going to be you're ready to upload all of your rental properties, tenant roster, and be prepared. So let's jump into that. So now I'm Mike Jones. I am a manager for Jersey Village LLP. And I'm ready to go ahead and upload my tenant information. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my registrations tab. I have one company that I'm managing. I'm going to click on the vendor registration for that company. And now you'll notice that I have a new circle step here called units tenants. There is a question here. So if there are any data elements that were required that we didn't collect during the initial registration, just be alert for those items. They're all going to have the little asterisk beside them. And the other key will be that the field itself is blank. So I'm just going to say no. And the reason why we ask this conflict of interest question is that if there is a conflict between the agency that's been assigned to work with you, then we would have to make some, DCHS would need to make some maybe reassignments in that case. But that's a question that's asked during the initial registration process. But if you didn't answer it, you'll have another chance here to do so. So now I complete that. I'm going to go ahead and click next. Now this is where you're going to be able to actually upload your tenant information en masse. Super, super important. We've provided a downloadable template that you use. We cannot change the template.